Hi, good morning, everybody. And my name's Rebecca. I'm the CMO here at Trickle, and I'm delighted to see so many of you here. Thanks so much for joining us today in the seventh of our series of Be the Change webinars. I'm delighted and honoured to have Katy and Kyle here from Connect 3. I'll pass over to these guys in a minute, and also Mandy, who's the COO at Trickle. So today we're talking about social wellbeing in teams and the importance of inclusion, diversity, and as always, the ability and the importance of being able to measure the impact of anything that you do in the workplace. So the plan for today, we'll get started with some questions. Please feel free to jump in with any questions that you may have. Try and keep it as relaxed and informal and conversational as possible. So it's great to hear from you all if you have anything to add. And I'll just hand over to Katy to introduce yourself, if that's okay, please.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Rebecca, and lovely to be here this morning. So my name is Katy Morrison. I am part of an organisation called Connect 3. So Connect 3 are a very proud B Corp organisation that exists to really help people run their businesses. So if that's in terms of strategy and building confidence and capability through values and behaviours, we really want to help support people to do great businesses and create great workspaces. And as head of culture and performance there, my job really is involved in getting to know and understand the organisational objectives, why you exist, what you're trying to achieve, and how can we build the best working practices and the best working behaviours to create a place that people can thrive and be at their best, and linking into today, feel included. And we know that that helps really drive performance, productivity, and that sense of belonging across organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you, Katy. And Kyle, would you like to say?
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me on, guys. I appreciate it a lot. So I'm Kyle Young. I work with Connect 3. I'm a wellbeing consultant, and I also run my own fitness and lifestyle coaching business. So that's been probably about 10 years I've been running this coaching business. But in amongst that, I've had public sector work, private sector work, managed teams. And I'm really excited to get into this today because it kind of draws upon some of the stuff that I used to deal with as part of managing teams. And a lot of the stuff I'm continuously passionate about is helping both individuals and teams to thrive and, of course, support the bottom line as well. So thank you for having me along.
Thank you. And Mandy.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here as well. I have to say we've had some great conversations already, Kyle and Katy, so I know that's going to be a good one. We've gone to some of your brilliant wellbeing roundtables at Connect 3, and the kind of the discussion around those tables is fantastic. So we're delighted to have you on one of our Trickle webinars to continue the discussion. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Mandy Curley. I'm COO at Trickle. And if you're not familiar with Trickle, we are a digital way for leaders to stay in touch with honest feedback from their employees, recognize emerging issues early so they can take action, and also kind of have some metrics and some insights around how their employee engagement and their social well-being is doing. So my job specifically is around operations and strategy and making sure that our customers see best value from Trickle.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, Kyle, could you tell us what social wellbeing in the workplace kind of really means, and also why does it matter?
Yeah, I think the interpretation of it is actually something that I don't think a lot of people could probably put their finger on what it is. It's more about a feeling more than anything. So feeling connected, a feeling of belonging, supported. And of course that comes from role modeling from the senior leadership and all the way down to every individual and helping support colleagues. And the reality is if we can get this right in the workplace, it has loads of benefits. But on the other hand, of course, it can have some serious impact for people feeling disengaged and subsequently impacting the way people feel. So I think naturally that relating to that feeling of being connected and belonging and feeling your worth within an environment as well. I actually draw upon some of the stuff I was doing when I was at university. I had my dissertation and I kind of touched on some of these elements as part of it. And I feel that if we just look at like what's going to motivate someone within the workplace, of course, monetary factor is something that people automatically jump to when it comes to motivation. But the reality is, if you can be going into your workplace and feel like you're adding something, and you have colleagues that feel support, like are supportive of your decision making, and you have autonomy, the reality is that you're going to be far more motivated to work harder for not only yourself but for the other people around you as well. So touching upon some of the benefits for the individual itself is certainly a sense of worth, and being involved in a team mentality. And as a result of that, I would argue that stress would be less. Again, that's something I talk about from a one-to-one level, but certainly within teams as well. And then on the kind of other side of things, feeling disconnected, if you don't have that feeling of, I'm going to say, connectedness within an organization, and naturally, I would say it's a kind of slippery slope. Not only is it going to impact yourself in terms of stress levels, in terms of impact on sleep, and impact on decision making, but for organizations, you're going to have teams that maybe aren't collaborative across different environments or teams, and subsequently, again, relating to what I said before around that bottom line. So yeah, social well-being is a feeling more than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's a really great overview of it. Katie, what would you say the difference is between social connection and social inclusion within a workplace is?
Yeah, so just building on a bit of what Kyle was talking about there around about that feeling, so social connection within the workplace is that feeling as if that you've got people that believe in you, people that you connect with, people that you might enjoy working with, and having a friend at work if that's what you're looking for, and not everyone is looking for that, but around about that feeling of friendship, and or at least that in terms of the respecting the role that I'm doing, or the role that or the strengths that I bring to my role, and actually realizing that we need each other within the workplace. The one thing that we've all got in common is we're people, we work with people, and teams depend on each other. That's why they exist, because we all play that part. So that social connection can really make that difference of people understanding. Whereas then social inclusion is being really aware of what are some of the barriers that exist for individuals, that they can't belong, or they feel as if that they're not valued, or they don't have that connection. So that might be down to diverse characteristics or challenges that people face. So that social inclusion is having that focus, that understanding of where am I allowing people to connect, and where am I seeing great relationships and strong working relationships, versus actually are there barriers that might mean that people are excluded, or I'm not able to, for people to really give their all or bring their full selves to work.
And do you think, looking over the last kind of 5 years, obviously COVID, the world of work's changed completely dramatically. Has social inclusion, is it been made better or worse by the kind of shift that we've all experienced?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think for that it varies across organisations, and we have seen that variance across different organisations, where some absolutely it's got better, because actually we're more aware of our people, we're more aware of the boundaries that they need. So even from the example of hybrid working or flexible working, that actually we've understood that people have things in their personal lives that they've got kids, or they've got caring duties, or clubs and passions that they want to be part of, and we're recognizing that enables them to feel really good about themselves, and therefore we're creating opportunities that that allow them to have that personal life as well, and get that lovely balance that they need. Though on the flip side of that, we find that organisations that went from all being in the office together, having the ability to have social connections, to then actually we've removed the physical workspaces, everyone is now fully remote, that actually for some that's meant that that distance and the social connection has diluted, and they've been craving that physical time together. So for me, it's about really understanding the organisation, what it exists for, and actually, what are the goals? What is going to then help? Is it the hybrid? Is it flexibility? Is it that actually we need people to come back together more, because that creates that opportunity to collaborate, to work together, to boost creativity? So I think it's that, the tip for organisations is to really understand what are people's experience, what's working for them, what's not, how are people interacting, collaborating, and looking at, is this a strength, or actually do we need to shift or change things to make that work for our organisation and our people?
With such a kind of diverse workforce though now as well, like if you've gone fully hybrid, for example, how do you, it used to be kind of 10, 15 years ago, you just arrange drinks in the pub or drinks in the office, and that doesn't work anymore for most workplaces. Have any of you got any examples of, things that you've done or seen done well or not done well also?
Yeah, I'll jump in this one actually. So with my previous employer in the public sector, one of the things that kind of draws upon one of the things that Katy said is that if we consider that probably before COVID we weren't that aware, and I'm going to say generically, maybe weren't that aware of social inclusion as much. Now, Katy mentioned something like I probably wouldn't have known what my colleagues were doing in their personal life as much. I probably wouldn't really know what their circumstances were. However, now it's become far more apparent that we really do need to know these things, because it helps us to, if we can help someone in their personal life, then naturally we can help them in their professional life, because it might just be that we need some adaptations to ensure they do feel more included, to feel that they're more connected. Now, with our previous employer, something that worked really well, and it was so simple, was just having like a 15-minute conversation every day. That it was a kind of setup call more than anything. It was actually implemented right at the start of COVID. It was the main premise of it was just to bring teams together, or a team together, to help people to understand that, like, we don't necessarily need to be in the same office in order to thrive, but having a setup call that helps us discuss maybe what we were doing last night, what our plans are for the day, and making sure that people just had that kind of opportunity to express themselves. Super simple, but just having that kind of open forum. And I certainly know something like the software that Trickle has, like, makes that a lot easier as well now, because that's that allows people to express themselves. So yeah, a simple call was something that worked really well for me, helped me understand my colleagues, and subsequently helped me feel like I was part of something bigger than just the organisation.
Yeah, because it's those moments where you used to just be like making a cup of tea, or you'd have those exchanges there, and that helps.
Exactly.
So 15-minute
Exactly that,
call.
Rebecca. And just to jump in on the, drinks is on a Friday night, it's pretty outdated. To be honest, it was probably outdated before the pandemic, given you had, working parents and people who are caring for others at home, or neurodivergent individuals. It didn't suit a lot of people then. And so it certainly feels majorly outdated now. One of the, you've got people working from home. A lot of people, there's a new culture of not drinking alcohol, and people not wanting to feel pressured to drink alcohol. But what I would say is, it might still suit some people. So you might have a certain demographic where actually they really crave drinks on a Friday night, and they would love to be able to connect in that way. And I think it's not a one size fits all, and it's an ever evolving scenario, this social well-being, which is why it can feel quite overwhelming as a leader, because each individual within your team is unique. And how they like to connect with others, what gives them that trust, what gives them that sense of belonging, will be slightly different based on their circumstances, based on their personality, based on their preferences, and their starting point, what their previous experiences were in other organizations. So for me, the answer to uncovering what's right for your organization is to ask the people within your organization. To Kyle's point, ask people, what how included do you feel? How connected do you feel to your team? How valued do you feel? How safe do you feel to speak up when things go wrong? And respond quickly. So that's the response to the need for connection in any organization, and that will change over time. So what the right solution is now, in 3 months' time, might be entirely different. So it's about constantly asking those questions and evolving as you go.
Yeah.
I'll jump in as well, just to add, and again, I can't agree more with that. Really asking, and it's and asking what is appropriate for different people as well, and then also not judging based on what you need and want. So for me, I love the drinks on a Friday. I also love going up a hill climb or, spending time with the team on a Monday at Connect 3. We call Monday our anchor day. That we have a hybrid working, so dependent on different roles, then some might be that more office based. They can choose to work from the office or home or a client or partner. Some of us are then out and about spending time with clients. It's all very different. So we try and keep Monday as our anchor day. That means that we all, as much as we can, come to the office. We spend time over lunch. If you want, even as simple as we started a weekly soup. So someone makes the soup, and if you want the soup, we all sit down together. But that's that bringing people together where we can interact and connect. But also it's that let's not judge if people don't want to do the hill climb or they can't or they're not able, but it's putting on like a varied spread, if you like. So you're trying to cater for different people's needs so that we're making any sort of social outings and a wellbeing focus accessible. So again, that's going back to then knowing and understanding the demographics of the people that form your team. What are their needs and wants and different varied abilities, so that we're not excluding people from, if it's active and they're not wanting to be active, or forcing our habits onto other people. And that, if you're free from judgment, that enables people to feel respected as well.
Yeah, that's great. We've had a couple of questions, so I'll just jump to those. So Hamish, hi everyone, great discussion so far. Really keen to know how best to approach people, i.e. specific actions, who feel like they don't fit in with their colleagues. And what can you do to try and make them feel like they belong to a part of a wider team? Would anybody like to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one and then see what Mandy and Kyle think. For me, that first of all, it's great that we're recognising that, because a lot of times these things potentially, or people's experience, go unnoticed, and that just really deepens people's feelings of isolation. So it's really hard if you feel like you're not connected and you don't belong, to raise that. Particularly if there's other groups that seem to really form and come together. So actually that individual, it can be really hard. So knowing that people have noticed that and then still not doing anything about it really deepens that feeling of disengagement and isolation. So first and foremost, I think that, not acknowledging it, acknowledging that you've recognized this and you want to be able to support and find out what that person needs and wants you to do, potentially, particularly if you're in a leadership role and we expect and we look for our leaders to take action in these moments. So by reinforcing the right behaviours, reinforcing the company values if you have them, that really support the best behaviours that include people, but really just acknowledging it in a lovely, simple conversation of, can I check in on you? I've noticed that this is happening. What's your experience? What can we do to support this? What needs to happen? And just have some really helpful, supportive conversations. At this stage as well, we're fact finding, so we might have to go off and ask other people, what are they seeing and feeling? And actually, is this happening in isolation to one person? Or actually, is this a theme or a trend that actually is going to be a red flag for our culture? And then we might have to, again, bring in, this is what I expect, this is the behaviours that I really want to reinforce, because that really, helps us have the best cultures, and it just almost resets what our expectations are.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I'll jump in if that's all right, Rebecca.
Yeah, please do.
Just to touch on what Katie said there, is being able to have a platform for people to feel that they can express themselves, and that I think that comes from senior leadership as well. Obviously, of course, it comes from everyone, but I feel that senior leadership have to play their role when making sure that there's a culture that allows people to be open and honest about how they're feeling. And then I suppose the way in which you do that and collect that information and what you do with it and the speed of action of it is all extremely important. Of course, the last thing you want is anyone to feel like that. So the pace in which you take action on the information, how you go about doing it, and you do it in a way that's respectful for the individual or individuals that feel that way. I think it's all majorly important. So yeah, it's a communication game at the end of the day. How do you extract the information properly, and how do you take action on it as appropriately?
Yeah, and I think just that, sorry, Rebecca, just that taking action, and because actually Kyle just made me think there, and actually it's about what's the root cause? Why is this happening? And then actually let's try and put in some of the solutions and the actions that helps that mitigate that from happening again. So whether that's a buddy system, or do we need to incorporate mentoring, or actually is it that we need to create more cross collaboration within teams, or a bit of that team building or training around about the right behaviours. So yeah, just a couple of hints around about what that action might look like. But you're so right, it's about that pace of action without, knee-jerk reactions. Let's do a little bit of that fact finding as well.
Katy, see if we touch upon sorry to interrupt, if we just touch upon one of the things that we probably have implemented as part of a conversation we've had with an organisation of late, and it's one of the things that they struggled with was the collaboration between teams, and teams actually understanding and knowing what each other were doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a disconnect if the people on the floor don't really know what the people in the back office are doing, and vice versa, whatever that looks like for every individual organization. And it can feel like you're like and like just disconnected in general from the organization if you're doing a role that might be quite isolated, or you might not really have a team, and you don't really have an understanding about what other teams are doing. So I suppose like a tangible takeaway for that would be, is there a reason why this is occurring, and is there something you can put in place to understand that there's going to be individuals within different teams that maybe don't actually know what's going on in the organization in general, and again relating back to that communication piece as well.
I think as well, both Kyle and Katy fully agree with your points, and I think you both touched on psychological safety and creating that culture of psychological safety where individuals who may feel excluded, sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's really not obvious, that somebody is feeling that they are undervalued, or that they are not being included in certain activities, or they just don't feel like they've got that sense of belonging. And it's about providing them with a psychologically safe environment to speak freely about what their current reality is and what would fix it. So to both your points, Kyle and Katy, it's about, am I creating the environment which allows for these tough conversations, and am I prepared to hear and listen to and act upon what my employees are telling me? Because in some cases, I would probably need to ask myself, am I modeling socially inclusive behavior? And have I normalized casual outreach? Am I, coming out from behind my laptop and having chats with people and asking them what their experience is of working within the organization, and having real curiosity around that? So I think culture obviously always starts with the leadership team, and it's about constantly asking yourself, am I modeling the behaviors that I want to see within my organization? And have I created an environment where people feel heard and will be acted upon?
That's a really interesting point, Mandy, about psychological safety. It's something that we hear more and more about. What would you say, how do we know if you're sitting as a leader, how do you know if your workplace has psychological safety or not?
So for me, there's lots of different elements, that subtle elements where you can pick up where psychological safety is present in an organization. But the one big sign that psychological safety is healthy is if mistakes are normalized and not punished. So if an individual is able to admit to a mistake and it's seen as an opportunity to learn and develop and grow, that's usually a very psychologically safe environment. If feedback goes both ways, so if it goes top down and flows the other way as well, we've said it a few times, but if feedback is acted upon and taken seriously, that's a psychologically safe environment. So yeah, they would be the main kind of criteria that I would be looking for. And obviously you have the usual metrics as well. Are individuals staying with you? Is that what's your employee churn rate like? And what's your engagement rates like? What are your metrics around how happy your people are and how engaged they are? Kind of checking in with them to see how, is absenteeism an issue? Is burnout an issue? So all of these kind of key employee metrics will give you a really big indicator as to how your culture is doing.
Yeah, thank you. We've touched upon like leadership modeling behavior. and about people feeling included. And, as companies have moved hybrid, remote, or back into the office, since time began, workplace cliques have been a thing that HR leaders need to kind of be aware of. What can you do to handle any kind of workplace cliques or people that are intentionally leaving others out in the workplace?
Yeah, I think touched on that to a short degree earlier, but for me then it's round about recognizing it again and looking out for this. And naturally, yeah, you're right, naturally cliques do form and exist. And it's about then going, right, where are these now starting to become unhelpful and we're excluding people and it's impacting people's experience at work and or productivity now, and then it's trying to be really active in what can we do about this. And it goes a wee bit to what Kyle was saying for me around about really valuing and appreciating what other people do or bring. So if cliques exist within teams, for example, or silos, that actually it's that going, well, we do need each other. Everyone's got a role to play here, but let's really understand, what the value is of that team and what they're bringing, so that we're valuing and appreciating, that we're all contributing to that bigger picture. If then it's in between like different teams, it's understanding that experience. We've said that a few times, and I've got past experience of where I naturally sat within a team that I worked in, and actually there was unfortunately quite toxic behaviours that sat within that team. So I naturally would spend my lunch times, my social time within actually another team, because the behaviours there for me felt welcoming, they valued me, they respected me. So actually though that had a negative impact on then the work that I did. And actually, I had a really great line manager at that point that started to notice that I was spending more and more time within that other team. And I would turn up to the meetings that I had to, but every other time I was with a different team. And they just said, right, Katie, what's going on here? And again, created that psychologically safe environment for me to go, well, actually, these are some of the behaviours that I'm experiencing and I just don't like it. Right, well, what can we do about that? And let's start to really address some of these and let's get to know each other, understand, right, and let's create team building opportunities that we can spend time together to get to know and value and that appreciation. And I think it's just that of going, right, when are cliques happening? When are they unhelpful? Again, just the last thing for me is naturally you're going to get people that are drawn to people, but it's around about let's create the opportunities to still celebrate and value the difference that other people bring so that in the workplace, we can't control what people do outside of work, but in the workplace, we need to have that level of professional and respectable and adult behaviours. And if things start to fall underneath that line, we can't tolerate that if it's going to have a negative impact on other people, essentially.
I think it's important to realise that, and I'm sure we've all been in situations before, whereas some cliques actually have a positive impact on the culture. Like sometimes they can actually bring a lot of positivity to it, and it's not about trying to split them up or like. Of course, it's great when there's like a group of friends that might spend a lot more time together. Of course, it becomes an issue when it becomes hostile, or they change the culture, or they drive a negative narrative, or they're impactful in ways that we can't or we've not addressed so far. So yeah, obviously I suppose it could be really easy to look at the negatives of cliques, but sometimes when there's some real positivity and there's people driving like initiatives that you probably wouldn't have done otherwise, or they wouldn't have done, or people wouldn't have heard of. So yeah, just I think looking at it from the positive view as well. I'm actually Rebecca, if it's okay with yourself, there was a question that came in the side from Emma. And it was actually just one of the things that I was speaking about earlier on. And she said, wouldn't we have talked to each other more sitting next to each other day after day and felt that we knew our colleagues' families and circumstances? You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, things changed very, very quickly. On the 25th of March, a few years ago, things changed and we got into a position where we couldn't do that. And it's about how do we foster our community via technology that we have. And yeah, I would argue that if we were all in the office every single day, we probably would have that chit chat. But I'm actually just going to draw on like my wife, for example. She works for an organisation. They have an office in Glasgow. However, the vast majority of her team all work remotely or work from other parts of the business. she actually knows no one within our organization branch that she works out of. So she is probably slightly more isolated. But sometimes that kind of works in her favour. She can get her head down, she can get more work done. She's not really working as late. She's not like signing on loads after she finishes her working hours. So it is that balance. But I do totally appreciate that, yeah, probably before, if we were all in the office, we're all chatting, like we probably knew more about it. But think about someone that maybe joined just after that. Like people are moving more and more from organisation to organisation now. The staff turnover rates are increased. People aren't staying in the same organisation for 20 years. So if we consider that a lot of people have joined post the office days, or certainly the vast majority share of office days, we probably need to consider what can we do remotely that's still going to foster the same environment as we did when we were in person.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that, Kyle. So one of the things that I sometimes in previous companies have found is when you talk to other team managers, other department leads about social inclusion and diversity, and it's about how do you get other leaders in the business to understand the importance of it and to get on board and not just see it as like a tick box exercise that HR are making me do, which is such a frustrating position to be in. But have you any advice for us about how you can go about that?
Yeah, so I'll come in and again just build on that. I think it's changing that mindset from, like I said, the tick box and making it seem that it's just policies that sit within an organisation, to linking it to really daily and lived experience. So again, a bit about what Mandy was talking about, of let's talk to people about this sense of belonging, this sense of inclusion, and actually how does that help them feel as if that they do the best work and, you know, look forward to coming into work. And actually if that's different and the opposite of the dreading coming in or they're really anxious, and let's find out, yeah, what's going on within our organisation and checking in. And again, that realisation that, you know, just because in one quarter some of the engagement scores were high or the sense of inclusion was high, our works change, you know, so quickly, and things can impact that. So let's regularly catch up with our people and find out. And rather than, yeah, like I said, making it a we have to do this because it sits in that policy, right? What are our people telling us? What are the needs? And therefore, what can we start to do about that? So it's making it, yeah, the way that we work rather than just what we have to do. And again, I say this all the time, it ties into culture. And that's where kind of ED&I initiatives, wellbeing initiatives, if we can get away from we're doing it because we have to, the evidence is there, it's clear of we know that this helps people, we know that it helps productivity, we know that it increases innovation, retention, which again all comes to the bottom line. The evidence is there, it's been done. But again, for me, it's well, how do we turn that evidence into let's make this a great experience and great place to work? And yeah, it's regularly checking in and looking at our working practices and how can we really enhance the opportunities to check in on the well-being of our people, and then celebrating the success of that. So again, let's, you know, be able to story tell, or, you know what, we ran this event and this is what people felt and this is how it helped them, so that we're using stories and success stories to then know that it's not just a tick box. We're not doing it just because we have to. Actually, this is really making a difference, and start to track and monitor that. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's great. So when you're saying track and monitor, so it's about metrics, isn't it? So what kind of, and so if you're sitting in the HR and you need to get your ops director on board, what are the kind of key metrics, or the finance director, what are the key metrics, like 2 or 3 metrics that you would suggest people start to track and report on to show the impact of the inclusion and diversity policies?
Yeah, so for me, certainly around about any sort of engagement scores, inclusion scores, so that sentiment of how people are feeling, but then in and around about retention, or what the gaps are in terms of recruitment, or how quickly we're able to recruit people and then retain talent, and then also things around about sickness, absenteeism, and then any sort of productivity matrix that we gather. So we're having that the touchy-feely, the sentiment that's hugely important, but we've also got the evidence to say this is having an impact on our KPIs, and linking inclusion and linking well-being right back to your organisational goals, so that again we're making sure that it is really making a difference in terms of that performance at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Rebecca, can I just jump in that one as well?
Yeah, please do.
I feel like I'm jumping in quite a lot, so apologies.
No, it's good. No, I like it.
You touched upon, I suppose, your initial question around like what can leaders do in order to foster that culture. One of the things that I'm going to just relate to overall fitness. So let's just say your ambition was to lose weight, lose fat. Sometimes it takes until you're like in the depth of not feeling comfortable and body confident and lacking energy to really realize what the main priority is. At Connect3, we have a program called Energize. That's our wellbeing service, and one of the things we regularly talk about is how do we be proactive rather than reactive to the nature of wellbeing and social inclusion, and how do we actually foster the culture before it becomes an issue? Because the reality is it's far easier to foster our culture from the get-go rather than trying to reverse maybe something that's happened up until that moment. So sometimes we're having these conversations and businesses are like, yeah, here, do you know what, we're doing things really well. We don't do X, Y, and Z, but until the moment it becomes an issue, we're fine. And I totally respect that. But what I would say is, how can we put things in place to mitigate them happening now and put ourselves in the best possible position to deal with it? Because the reality is, like, digital well-being is a big thing, financial well-being is a big thing, ensuring people that understand like how to fuel their body properly. Mental health's been a bigger factor over the last few years. But the reality is the statistics are absolutely apparent that there's continuous issues with well-being within organisations. So I suppose don't rest in your laurels more than anything. So for businesses that are maybe listening today, it's, yeah, you might not have any issues, and do you know what? Absolutely amazing the fact that you're in that position. But the unfortunate truth is that we do need to be proactive to what's coming down the line. The reality is that's the statistics say that.
Yeah, and I suppose, coming down the line, with the change in makeup of the workforce as well, like that today's workforce won't accept what we all had to, and certainly, tomorrow's workforce definitely won't accept the kind of inclusion and diversity measures that were in place. Would you agree with that? You're all nodding.
100%.
I think that the important point that Kyle's just made there is it's important to get ahead of issues as they arise. So the earlier you can pick up on challenges that employees are experiencing and act on them, it addresses them before they become much bigger issues and they affect more people. So that makes perfect sense to me. The other point that I'd like to make is this isn't a great, we've done all that work and now we're, great, social well-being is brilliant and we've got these great metrics, we are done, perfect, and we'll address it again next year. Actually, it's an ever evolving conversation, because as human beings we are ever evolving ourselves, our needs are ever evolving, the circumstances that we are dealing with the outside of work are ever evolving. You've got new people coming in with different expectations, as you said, Rebecca. You've got neurodivergent people who have their own unique needs as well that need to be addressed. You've got people who who've been in the organization a really long time, and there's lots of change and there's lots of new ways of doing things, and they also need support and to feel that they are still connected with the values and the strategy of the organization. So there's lots of different things at play, and it never gets to the point where you think we're done and dusted, we've got to a really great position and we'll look at this again in 6 months. It's an ongoing conversation, and actually it makes it easier if it's an ongoing conversation, because you can address those small issues as you go rather than waiting for an annual survey and you uncover bigger issues than they need to be.
And I think, I was just going to say, and absolutely, because that's where for me it's like inclusion as a behaviour then needs to sit at the heart of that. So again, I said it at the start, but let's be free from judgments. Even that example of now more than ever, we have such an age range, that diversity of age and experience across organisations where people are staying in roles longer, we're getting people that are able to join earlier. And with that, again, we go into here, oh, well, they don't want to work, or they're not hardworking, and oh, what? It's not that anyone is right or wrong, or there's good or bad. It's just different. The world has changed, and it will keep changing. But it's that, the judgment sometimes, or the biases, or the stereotypes of who we're working with. So actually, if we can be free from that unhelpful bias or negative bias and judgment, and get to value and appreciate the difference that people are needing, because that's what helps us learn and evolve around about these varying needs. And again, as much as that makes it tricky sometimes, because we can't just put one thing in place that's going to cater for everyone's needs, it is then understanding around about that approach to personalised well-being, but from a place of not judging people, but really, learning and understanding. And it's not that we're right or wrong or good or bad, it's just a different world, and that will continue to happen. And that's where the greatness of diversity comes in, because we're ever evolving and we're learning through that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We're kind of coming towards the end already. It's gone so fast. But I'm really keen to get, if there was one thing that every listener could take away with them today to try and either reflect on, what their current workplace is like, or if they've identified that maybe they do need to improve it, what's one thing that they could take away with them today to implement or think about, or a resource? Is there something that you've seen that's really amazing on this? Anything like that, just one thing that people could take away. Could each of you share something, please?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one, Rebecca, if that's all right. So the major takeaway, and I continuously say this, well-being in general, whether it was social well-being or any other type of well-being, is not a one size fits all. It is massively bespoke to every organization. Now, I'm not here to look at what anyone else is doing within the market with well-being in general, but it's not an off-the-shelf scenario. The reality is, what works for our organization and what works for your organization could be totally different. Now, what the important thing is to realize is there's going to be certain opportunities within your organization and certain areas that you maybe look at as a bigger concern, and that's the sort of stuff that you want to try and identify. But the solution for that is totally bespoke to you as an individual company. So don't get caught up in the noise. Don't get caught up necessarily in the trends. I think it might have been Amanda that said that referenced it. Well-being in general should be a kind of hand-holding situation throughout the longevity of the business. It's not like we've ticked these boxes, and it's something that certainly organizations should be looking at for longer term.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Katy, would you like to go next?
Yes, I think just having that lens of understanding where are the moments and the opportunities that we bring people together. So whether that's a team meeting, whether it's a project, whether or not it's social calendars, wellbeing events, and just having to think about where are we actively potentially excluding people, and is there opportunities to bring more of an accessible lens to what we're doing, and actually who haven't we thought about potentially in these events, and just taking that moment to have a think about where are we including, but more than that, where are we excluding? And that might have to mean going and having conversations with people and learning a little bit more about people's experience of the workplace.
Yep. And is it about facilitating those conversations in different ways? So whether it's team meetings, town halls, online, anonymous, right across the board?
Yeah, and I think that in itself is role modeling, that not everyone likes the face-to-face conversation, and how are we asking for that and making sure that we're catering for different communication preferences. Absolutely. And that role modeling.
Yeah, and the walk-in meeting as well, like we do, Trickle, that's something that we've been working with, and just that the ability to say something with the phone is sometimes a lot easier than when it's face-to-face, eye-to-eye, online. Thank you, that's brilliant. And Mandy?
So my advice would be go and have a conversation with somebody out with your usual work bubble, somebody who ideally you don't usually speak to at all. And rather than talk about the work at hand, which is what we all speak about at work, talk to them about what their experience is of working at your organization, and ask questions like, how valued do you feel? And what one thing could we do to make you feel more connected or more included? And whatever they come up with, whatever suggestions they make, really listen. If there's action to be taken, take the action, even no matter how small, and then check back in with them once that action has been taken in a couple of weeks and see what impact that has had, just so you can get a micro glimpse of the impact of really tuning into your people and responding to what it is that they need. And that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's us actually coming to the end of our time now. So I'd just like to thank you all once again for joining us as our panel of speakers. So thank you so much, and to everybody else for joining us to listen to the brilliant conversation. Hope you've all got a lot out of today, and we'll follow up as always with the kind of key takeaways. We really want the sessions to be as informative and interesting to you guys as possible. So if there's either a topic or a speaker that you've come across and you'd like to see them on a Trickle webinar, please do drop me an email at rebecca@trickle.works. You'll all have my email address anyway. And yeah, have a lovely day, and thank you again, everybody. See you later. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you later.
Bye bye.